to Assembly Audible, the podcast dedicated to exploring all aspects of product assembly. I'm your host, multimedia editor Jennifer Pierce, and we're so happy you're tuning in today. Today we're recording from the Assembly Show in Rosemont, Illinois, and I am joined by Anthony Leo, president of IPR Robotics. Anthony, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me today. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm so excited to learn more about your company, IPR Robotics. So let's kick off by talking about some of your philosophies. Please share with our listeners your philosophy on new product development in the automation sector.
Yeah, so I think the key thing for new product development is first you got to figure out, is it something that's maybe a completely new product in a completely different market that maybe doesn't look like your current portfolio of products, or is it a special or a variation of something you currently produce? So, like a good example is, all right, so we make, our company is known as the hands and feet of robots. That's kind of our phrase to help people understand exactly what we do. So if we're gonna say we have a 10 kilogram gripper and all of a sudden we wanna make a 12 kilogram, that's more of a special, right? It's kind of evolving from the current product portfolio or the engineering expertise we have. If now we wanna go in a completely different market, make a product that we've never done before, that'd be more of a kind of brand new product. So how I would look at those two scenarios is if it's something that you're currently capable of, like just a new version of a gripper, I look at that more as a sprint. So something that we can kind of go quickly through the development phase. Our engineers already have the know-how of generally how things work. We just might need to make some components bigger, slightly stronger. That's a much quicker process. But something that's a new product development from the ground up, a new market, something we haven't done before, I want to take that a little bit more of a more conservative approach to where we want to make sure and validate that, one, the design meets the customer and the market expectations. So it's not something we're designing in a vacuum, to where when we release it to the market, then they're, hey, I can't use this because of X, Y, or Z. So we want to be able to involve customers through that part of the process. And then second, we're going to go more iterations potentially in-house before we release it. So I want to maybe get a prototype built off the first design, test it in-house. Okay, we need to make these 3 changes. Let's iterate it. It might take a little bit longer, but again, when you're trying to go out to a new market and maybe your brand isn't known for this type of a product, you more or less have one opportunity to get it right. And so I'd rather not have the market than say, oh, I know IPR as the hands and feet. They got into this other product. They're very good at this. They must be really good at this. They try it out, and if it doesn't work, now they're going to kind of squash that on that side of the market. So you're almost kind of shooting yourself in the foot before you get started. So That's kind of how I look at the new product development, is first figure out, is it a special or an evolution of something you do? And maybe you can sprint through that process, or is it something that's just brand new technology that you have to kind of take your time and get right?
Absolutely. Okay, so walk me through the process of transforming a Napkin-Sketch into a usable product. What are some of the methodologies you use in product development in the automation arena to ensure you're creating something that customers want and need?
Yeah, so one way I did this at a previous company, we had a large billion-dollar worldwide company that had an incubator that I helped run for new product development, new ideas development. And when I came in to kind of manage that process, we had a conceptualized idea, but when I came in, I basically said, hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's go out and find customers that we think fit the market we're trying to sell into with this product and the problem we think we can solve, but let's get real information from customers that will end up hopefully wanting to use this.
So, such an important part of research.
Yes, and that's I think something that people skip quickly, like, oh, this is such a great idea, let's just make it. And then again, you're missing out on what the customer might say, oh, that's great, but my facility, we have this system or this protocol, and now we can't use your product. So what I did is I spent a couple months doing cold outreach, just cold phone calls, cold emails, reaching out to the customers I think made sense for what we were trying to do. And eventually I got about 3 or 4 that I molded into a customer development board. And so basically what I told them, my pitch to them is, I don't have a product that exists yet. So it's a very soft pitch of like, hey, I just want to talk with you. And on the back end is basically, I want to essentially give you free engineering resource to solve a problem that you can't solve in your facility. And here's our kind of thesis. Help us kind of mold that thesis into an actual product. And so we had these 3 really engaged, one that was a little bit more less engaged. But we talked them through every month. We discussed here's where the developments are going into, here's where we're continuing to evolve. And then over a course of about 6 to 7 months, we had all right, we actually think we have a good design for this product. Then we went through another few months of actual development, testing internally. We went to the customer's facility. We were looking at a lot of food type applications, so like your HelloFresh type of order meal kits. But then beyond just the meal side, there's others. There's one called Pupjoy that was doing dog monthly boxes and stuff. So these kitting applications were, when I walked into the facility, it was people throwing up just foldable tables, throwing boxes on it, and then just hand filling. It's just really hard to automate. So we walked through the facility, and what we ended up actually landing on is looking at ice packs. So they freeze in a very different topography, every single one. If you grab them, there'll be some sort of a layer of water that will kind of melt. So it's very difficult to manage. So instead of going right after the food applications, which were extremely difficult, it require a different level of sanitation. We went after the ice pack, which still solved a very hard problem for that entire industry, but it made the automation side simpler. So even our initial application in the development, once we got on site at the customers, we actually even went a completely different direction, but it was the same product.
That's interesting.
So, but the end of the result is, will the customer get enough of an ROI out of this to justify trying to install this? So that was kind of the approach we took, with more of a customer development board to allow us to, at the end result, have a product that essentially the customer is signing on to. If you can achieve these results, I'm buying this, because you're going to solve a problem I haven't been able to solve.
Okay, so that's kind of a little bit of a reverse way of designing a product or thinking about things. Interesting.
Yeah. Bring the customer in earlier.
Yeah.
So that way they can help you avoid the landmines that you might otherwise not think of until it's too late and you've already spent all the time and money developing it.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing that. So tell us about StackTrax. What went into the process of creating it, and why was it developed?
Yeah, so StackTrax is a new multi-axis seventh axis. So something that you put a robot on and allows it to move back and forth and on a floor or something like that. So instead of having an overhead gantry system, which is expensive, that requires a lot of space in the facility to install it. It's a little bit more complex to maybe maintain or program. The StackTrax allows people to have a much smaller footprint, but still have a multi-axis extra reach for the robot. So the idea and the concept, again, going back to involving customer feedback, was they were looking for a more cost-effective solution than a gantry. It's something that could fit on their floor and still give them extra reach for the robot. So they have about 6 or 7 machines, and instead of having a robot at each machine and trying to figure out how to hand off a product between each one, the time it takes for the machines to kind of do their process, it made much more sense from a cost-effective nature to have one robot on a rail, but they needed the extra reach. So this allows us to essentially have another rail on top of a bottom rail. And for us, the evolution from the product was, could we make this as, again, a new design, or can we make it as a special or a variation off of previous product? And we were able to actually create it out of standard modular components we have and develop this into a off-the-shelf custom rail, if that makes any sense. But the idea is basically that people can take this multi-axis system, and it's not just a standalone product, and if your robot doesn't fit on this one, you can't do it. It's a range. So we can handle different sizes, payloads of robots with the same style system. So it allowed us to, one, create, again, a new product much quicker, that meta need that a customer needed, and then 2, it built off the modularity of the products we already have, so that we can get this actually a custom multi-axis system out to the market in a very, very fast fashion. So it's not a custom process from a lead time perspective too. So it was kind of a win-win, but it was designed around the machine tending type of applications out in the market.
Interesting. All right, so several other companies make 7th axis technology. What does IPR contribute or offer that other companies don't?
One of the big things is the customization of what we can do. So some other RTU companies, they might be more, here's kind of the lane we play in. IPR, we have everything from small cobots all the way up to the largest robots on the market that we can build RTUs for. So the KUKA Titan Fanuc M2000, those are kind of like the biggest robots in the market. So we're able to handle rails for those types of robots. So it gives us a very wide range of things we can do. But if a customer wanted to say, I want a 2.75 meter rail, we'll cut it to the exact specs that they want. So that's something very different that IPR does because of how, we've designed the product in nature. It's a very easy way to customize for us just based off of the modularity of the system we have. So that's kind of a big difference. We also do have aluminum and steel profiles. The steel is really good for the bigger, heavier stuff. The aluminum allows us for a smaller, skinnier profile for the smaller robots, so it does reduce the footprint to install a rail for our type of product. And then for us, I think a big differentiator is our lead times. So our understanding is we're the lead time leader in the market right now. We inventory beams, we inventory a lot of our product. So if there's a situation that arises where a customer says, I want a rail in 6 weeks, we can handle that. And that's something that we're very proud of, to be able to meet a very quick turnaround when customers need it.
So do you think that your philosophy is different?
Different than
other companies who are also in the same line?
Yeah, so my big kind of overarching strategy, if you want to call it that, is being easy to do business with. That encompasses kind of everything we do, from a product management approach to how we interact with our customers. Early on, we like to ask a lot of questions. Instead of just assuming things, and here's a rail design, they buy it, they install it, and it breaks because it was too under-engineered. We like to ask a lot of the questions up front to make sure that when the customer gets their rail, they're happy with it. Mm-hmm. So for us, the being easy to do business with philosophy goes into when customers need a quote. Sometimes we can get out same day. Sometimes it takes a couple days, depending on the information we have from the customer. But we want to make the interaction experience not abrasive. One thing I've seen in my past history is a lot of companies will have a customer prevention team on the way that they go to market and how they interact. Whereas our approach is, no, let us help you figure out the gaps you don't know by the questions we're going to ask you. So that way you don't have to worry that when you come to us, we're going to give you the solution that you need to actually meet the application. And that's actually how StackTrax came to be. Was because they came to us looking for gantry styles, looking for something that, let's say, is known in the market. Mm-hmm. And we said, hold on, let's ask the right questions for you so we can come up with a new solution that actually meets your application. So instead of customers trying to take our products and fit it to an application, we can make our products fit the application to make it more efficient in the design.
Yeah. Well, you've talked about some of your philosophies of being easy to work with. Where do you think that foundation comes from? I know in our keynote earlier, she was talking about being involved in sports for the majority of her life. Do you think that's, who sets your philosophies, and how do you get those foundations?
Yeah, so I've spent, before I came to IPR, about 10 years in venture capital startups in the robotics industry. And one thing I've learned in the startups, we had one that was extremely well run. The employees were it felt like a giant group project that everyone got paid for. Like, it was a very cohesive team. And I think in my experience on that, compared to a different side of the spectrum where maybe things weren't as cohesive, there's a lot of infighting and just not making things easier internally, that will make its way out to the customer experience. And so when the processes internally are abrasive, customers will notice that. And not just that you are like, oh, they have their problems internally. It's going to come up in the process. I had one customer, for example, we had to go through 5 or 6 meetings because of a process that was required by leadership at the time. Oh. And by the end of the process, the customer's like, we could have probably gotten to this in meeting 2. And the interesting part was the other customer that was with him, his colleague, says, well, I think they were forced to go through a process that he's not allowed to deviate from. And when the customer was able to call that out without me or anybody else basically saying it, it was very informative. Yeah. To let the
and validating.
Group, yes, validating that when a customer tells you, I could have gotten to this exact answer in 2 meetings instead of 6, that's not being easy to work with.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, just the experiences that I've had over time just boils down to you have to have a philosophy and a structure. And to me, that's just the easiest way to think of how to go to market is this method or is the way we're interacting easy for the customer or is it easy for us?
Right. Interesting. All right, well, let's talk about robots. Mm-hmm. Robots are big and heavy. They can move with a lot of force. What are some key design elements of a 7th axis to handle that?
Yeah, so one thing we do at IPR is we actually have a patented hybrid rail. And so it's our steel structure for the larger rail, or for the larger robots, but it's filled with concrete and reinforced with rebar. And so what this allows to do, so like the bigger, like M2000s, for example, when those robots are moving, there's a lot of force and moment loads that get put on that. And if you're trying to stop the robot to then complete an application, there's a lot of vibration that's going on in the system. So there's seconds that get stalled in this process because the robot has to settle. Then you can continue on with what you had to do. So the hybrid rail allows to almost instantaneous settling. So again, if it's 3 or 4 seconds to settle without it, it doesn't seem like a lot of time, but when you had how many processes you have, how many stop starts, that could be an extra 5-6 hours over the course of a week that robot is just sitting there waiting to settle. So that's the way that we look at the big and heavy ones, is we actually have a patented hybrid rail that we will look at to quote with customers to help with a lot of those types of things. But it's the roller bracket design to get into subcomponents, the rack and pinions, all those components we have, as we get bigger and bigger, different designs that allow for that to handle larger robots.
Interesting. All right. So why or when is a 7th axis necessary?
I think the simplest way to answer that question is just when the robot needs more reach.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of what it boils down to. It definitely is an application-specific question, because there are situations where having multiple robots is going to make the most sense. But again, if you're doing machine tending where it might take, say, 30 seconds to load and unload, but then the process takes 2 minutes, now that robot's just essentially sitting there. And so that payment, or the ROI, is much longer to be achieved. Or if maybe you had one robot and one rail, it's much simpler and a lower cost structure overall, like what happened with the StackTrax system. I think from a complexity standpoint, if you can get away with just a robot and a rail to manage the application, it's also a little bit easier to program, to maintain, so you're not having to do as much, say, PLC work or programming to make all the robots and everything talk to each other and work. When only you have one rail and one robot, it might make the whole process much cheaper to install and a little bit easier to maintain.
So how does the 7th axis work with the robot controller? And there's one additional question about the 7th axis. Can a 7th axis be used with a cobot?
Okay, so as far as the control side, if it's basically just one robot, one rail, you can add an extra servo drive controller into the robot controller and then kind of manage them separately. So it really depends on, do you want the rail and the robot to move at the same time independently of each other? Or is the motion going to be, I need to drive this robot, then stop, then move the robot, stop, move the rail? Because you can get away with a few different methods of maybe not needing an extra servo, or you needing the extra one. So it depends a little bit on the application, the cycle time you're trying to achieve. But as far as, like, we have a demo in our booth, we just have an extra servo drive, so that way we can kind of move both independently. As far as the cobot side, the answer is yes. The smaller aluminum profile rails fit that type of payload perfectly. I think mostly now in the market, cobots are essentially in that 35 kg and below range. It all depends on the application, on if you're going to use a cobot or not, the speed, the limit of the force you want to apply. But it's something that we're continuing to work on our side from a cobot-specific rail. It's something that we're looking to kind of add in the future.
Yeah, okay, well, I have a few closing questions. How can listeners get in touch with you and learn more about IPR Robotics? And then also, as a closing question, what's on the horizon for your company?
Yeah, so the easiest way to connect with us is going to our sales@iprrobotics.com web email. That will go right to our sales team, and we'll be able to pick up an inquiry. So if there's any interest on StackTrax, the grippers, tool changers, rails, anything that we sell, that's the quickest way. You can also just reach out to our colleagues on LinkedIn. Like, we're informal, wherever you want to find us.
Easy work with.
Yes, exactly. So there's no requirement you have to go through this method, but that's the easiest way. I mean, what's on the horizon for IPR? I mean, going into the end of this year, this will be our final show, which is good, coming into the Thanksgiving and Christmas seasons.
Right.
But going into next year, Automate is our kind of big show, so we'll be at that here in Chicago again next year. And you'll probably find us at a handful of other regional shows. But yeah, we're moving full steam ahead. We've got a lot of new products coming out over the next few months. And again, hey, if you're interested in talking with us further, you can't find something on the market, that meets a specific need and you need a slight modification from a tool change or gripper, we're the ones to kind of do that for you.
All right. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for your time today.
Yep, pleasure to join you, and I appreciate the time.
Absolutely. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Assembly Audible from the Assembly Show. Until next time, I'm Jennifer Pierce signing off for today. Thanks for listening.